You're right. Already. A lot. Yeah. Whatever. But
good morning, everyone. We are going to start the meeting here. We do not have a very lengthy agenda. There's just one bill on it that we're going to be considering. So we are going to convene the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. We'll give opportunities for our my co-chair and ranking member to see if they have any comments before we dive into the bill. Representative Haddad?
No, thank you.
Okay. Representative Haynes? Okay. Believe you're on mute, but I got the point anyway. So
Sorry about that.
no worries at all. I do not see Senator Kelly quite yet. So we'll go on. And this is House Bill 6901, an act concerning a student loan reimbursement program for certain professionals. It comes to us from the Appropriations Committee. And I'll be looking for a motion to JF this bill to the floor.
So moved.
Representative Turco, thank you. With the motion, we have a second to JF this bill to the floor.
Second.
Representative Paris with the second. Thank you. Any comments or questions about this bill before we take a vote on this? Representative Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a couple of comments, no questions. Since I have served on the Higher Education Committee for the last 5 years, anyone that's been on this committee with me knows that I've continuously talked about the student loan debt problem we have here in the state of Connecticut for young people and now not so young people who are still struggling with trying to pay off student loan debt. I've introduced a series of bills in this committee through the last 5 years. We've had public hearing. Some have passed out, but have never made it through the budget process. So I'm happy to see with this legislation we have here, it's actually come from us from the Appropriations Committee and been vetted by individuals on that committee who do have a lot of influence in our informing the state budget. But Connecticut, I've seen some different reports. We've had some really informative discussions in this committee that have said that student loan debt here in Connecticut is either we're the worst state in the nation or one of the top 5 worst states in the nation for the amount of debt the average person has. And I know from personal experience, when I graduated from a Connecticut university, started working here in this building as a low-paid staffer when I was 22 years old, almost 20 years ago, what it was like to graduate with, I had $60,000 of student loan debt. I had a payment of over $500 a month with variable interest rates, and how crippling that was for me at such a low wage right out of college and having to pay so many other expenses. And it took me a long time to be able to get out under that debt. And I talked to a lot of the constituents I represent in Newington and now New Britain and other young people across the state that face the same thing now in 2023, when the cost of higher education has increased even drastically than when I went to college. My undergraduate program, when I started in 1999, I know a long time ago, was 20-something thousand a year. That same university now is priced at over $60,000 a year. So it's really not fair to our young people when we say to be able to succeed, to be able to enter our workforce and have a job that's going to pay well, that's going to allow you to establish a career, that you are most likely, unless you come from a family that just is independently wealthy, you may have hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt. Now, I greatly appreciate the work that this legislature has done over the last 4 or 5 years now in creating the PACT program that allows for debt-free community college for all of Connecticut's high school graduates. I am strongly encouraging all of the constituents that I represent that if you can't afford to go to a 4-year school without taking on debt, go to one of our outstanding community colleges, get an associate's degree at no cost to you, and then look from there if you do need to go to a 4-year school. I know there's a lot of great professions where you don't need that 4-year bachelor's degree, but if you do for the profession you want to pursue, then you can look at finishing up your bachelor's degree with hopefully a minimum amount of debt. Take advantage of that PACT program. We've also made more investments in the legislature into Roberta Willis with putting money from ARPA dollars to try to help there. And then also some more significant investments in our higher education system to try to prevent tuition increases. But still, having done all of that work here in the legislature, we haven't done anything for those individuals who have graduated with student loan debt. So, Mr. Chairman, this bill makes a great step to creating a program here in the state of Connecticut that says to people that when they graduate from a Connecticut college, university, that they have debt, that there is a program available to them. This particular bill at the moment, if not amended, specifies certain professions in teaching, in social services, in nursing and healthcare fields that are very, very high in demand. It puts restrictions on the income for those individuals. So it's not somebody, making hundreds and hundreds of thousands that qualifies for this program. It's somebody that's going to commit to being here in Connecticut, contributing to the workforce in high demand fields that makes a reasonable salary, not something that's too exorbitant, that could apply for this program, that commits to doing community service hours. So they're committing to giving back and helping our nonprofits. And then they're going to get some relief in their student loan debt so they can stay here, work here, and contribute to our Connecticut economy. A lot of states are experimenting with different student loan debt relief programs. This is a great start for an idea of something we can do to really help people. And I urge my colleagues to pass it out of the Higher Education Committee today so that we can continue these conversations and create the best program possible to help those that are in debt. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me some comments on why I feel so passionately about Connecticut doing something to help with the enormous burden of student loan debt. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Turco. I'm going to go to Representative Weir, who I see with his, I'm sorry, Representative Weir, stand by, please. We'll go to Representative Haynes, who I think was first, and then we'll go right to you, Representative Weir. Okay, Representative Haynes, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions and maybe a comment, if that is okay. In regards to the bill, is this a pilot program? And if the proponent of the bill could express the pilot portion of this, how is this a pilot for this? That's my understanding.
Thank you, Representative Haynes. I could answer, but what I think I'm going to do is have the main proponent of the bill here, Representative Paris, if it's okay with him, answer questions, and I can jump in, or my co-chair can if needed. So if that works for you, Representative Paris, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, would you mind repeating the question for me? I did hear the premise around the pilot program, but I do want to be clear that I'm understanding the question and its clarity.
Sure. So that's exactly why I asked the question. I'm looking to get some clarity on this particular bill. This is my understanding about this bill is this is a pilot program. Can you elaborate on what is the pilot? How long is this program? Is this to determine whether or not this is something that we can extend out for other professions besides just the ones that are specifically named in this? Like, what is the purpose of this pilot? And, is there a term on this pilot? And, when do we get the answers by? What are we looking for out of this pilot if indeed it is a pilot program?
Thank you, Representative, for your question. That's a really good one. It is a pilot program as it currently stands, not amended. In terms of why these certain professions were chosen, it's obvious. What has been obvious to many throughout our state government, and of course across the state of Connecticut, is that there are many industries and sectors of the workforce of our state that are facing major challenges in terms of trying to hire and also retain and keep employees. And we are seeing that exponentially across the board in terms of nursing and childcare and mental health services, et cetera. I do understand, obviously, the concern that it picks winners and losers, and that's why I don't play the lottery, because I can never pick the right numbers. But I will tell you that there is an amendment with both House and Senate Democratic and Republican members working to address just that by allowing it to be open to all professions, and not just all professions, but also for those who have gone to trade schools as well, which we think obviously is quite representative of our population and of those who will be in need for some reimbursement relief. The pilot program, as it stands right now, I think that we are putting this program in place so that we can determine whether or not it is sustainable to move forward, and for how long that might be able to move forward. And so right now it's looking at a 2-year program for this biennium, and we would have to obviously reconsider or readjust moving forward based on how successful this program is in its current state as a pilot. I hope that answers your questions, Mr. Chair.
That
Thank you,
does,
Senator.
Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. I appreciate the answer. I also appreciate very much the amendment that's coming through that is including the, all professions as well as the trade school. I think that'll make some of my members very happy with that. Trade schools are a big plus in my book as well, so that's great. I understand that from what you've said that it's a 2-year, this biennium obviously having to do with budget. So to ask the follow-up question to that, is there a fiscal note on that?
Thank you, Representative Paris.
My least favorite question, Mr. Chair. Yes, there is a fiscal note to this. So OFA could not provide an exact fiscal note because they were not able to identify just how many people would take advantage of the program. But as it looks right now, there's a request for $6 million in the budget as it stands right now. And I think that is still ongoing in terms of what happens with our negotiations, as you well know. So that is what the request has been for the program to start it off. And I know that OHE also, who will be administering the program, has some administrative cost associated with that, but not very much so that it would take away from what is available to those who need the reimbursement need. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Haynes.
Well, thank you very much for that answer, and I can appreciate that. I guess thank you, and I appreciate the intent of the bill. I think it's a good bill, right? We have a problem with our students and being able to afford college. I will tell you personally, my daughter, who is currently a teacher, a director of orchestra, had a wonderful concert last night at Farmington High School. We told her that if you go to Gettysburg, you're going to incur X amount of dollars of debt. If you go to Western Connecticut, who has equally a fairly good music program there, conservatory there, you're going to incur less debt. And she made the choice to go to Gettysburg, and she's doing great. And she would have done great if she went to Western as well, because it's a good school and they have a great music program. So, but the point being is she made that choice to go to the other school and to incur more debt. So that is her choice, and therefore she's deciding to incur that debt. And I just feel that when we're doing something like this, you choose to go to a trade school versus go to a community school versus go to a 4-year college. And in those choices, you have to understand, and we even passed a bill, I believe, last year in higher ed that said we have to, as educators, to make sure that kids know when they go into a loan program that they are aware of the repercussions of a loan program. Similar to this. Now what we're saying is, doesn't matter, do what you want to do, we'll reimburse you up to $20,000 a year. Great opportunity, or I'm sorry, $5,000, but $20,000 over the course of 4 years. It's a great opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity. At the same time, we're defunding our higher education on the other side with another bill. So I think we need to think what we could do is we could start looking at the actual costs of education. How can we reduce the cost of education? What are we doing in our higher ed that it's becoming so costly, and it's the cost of it is prohibiting students, valued students, wherever they come from, to go to those universities and colleges. So maybe that's where we need to head, as opposed to just keep paying for whatever people think that we should pay for. So I have lots of concerns about the bill. At the same time, I appreciate the intent. I appreciate the lawmakers out there working on the professions and getting all the professions and trade schools involved, but I still have a problem with this bill, and I'm not sure how, maybe I'll vote it out of committee, but I'm not sure I can vote on it on the floor unless it gets greatly improved. But I do appreciate it. I understand it completely. But I think the fiscal note alone might kill it anyway. But anyways, thank you so much for giving me some time.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Weir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm thankful to Representative Haynes for asking the question for a summary about the bill, because it looked like we were going to move forward. even skimming it, I'm appreciative of the explanation that the good proponent provided. Also thankful to Representative Haynes for addressing the issue of costs. That's a huge concern for me. I think we're missing the mark when we talk about loan forgiveness. I think we're absolutely missing the mark at not addressing the issue of the underlying costs of higher education. In Connecticut, we have high faculty costs, high administrative costs, very high fringe benefits that other states are not carrying. In some cases, we've heard testimony that our universities don't qualify for grants because of our high costs, that the dollar spent at another university will go farther than it will in Connecticut in terms of research. And so I think we're not doing enough at the legislative end to ask what is going on with the costs and why are our universities not addressing those costs. And I don't think I guess on the other end, the consumer, the students, rather than asking for loan forgiveness, they should be asking, why are these costs so high? And probably demanding that we address and that the universities address the costs before they enter into an agreement that's going to put them in debt. So I agree that students, again, Representative Haynes brought up the topic of choice. Students have a choice. If you're going to go to a college or university and your chosen profession is not going to cover the cost of your education, that's a choice that's made. Again, we have an issue of choice and we have an issue of cost. I can't support this bill. I don't support the concept of loan forgiveness when a lot of times we enter into these agreements knowing what we're getting into. You can factor out what the college is going to cost over 4 years or 6 years or however long you're in there, and then look at what your chosen profession is likely going to pay. And I think we should be encouraging our students and our consumers to be very careful and more discerning when they're entering into those. And then we also have to look at the cost. So I can't support this bill, but I thank you for allowing me a few minutes to share my perspective.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Kelly is next, and then followed by Representative Rochelle. Senator Kelly.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I have a couple of questions and then comments. My first question is, will this apply toward someone who left in good standing from a private university in the state of Connecticut, like Quinnipiac?
Representative Paris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator, yes, it would apply to all students, public or private schools, who graduated or left in good standing from that institution.
Second is, did we consider, there are some, like for instance, the New England Compact that Connecticut participates in. And did we contemplate people who were thinking of going to a public university, but the public university in Connecticut was more expensive than one in another state? That if they came back to work in Connecticut, that would also qualify, because, getting to that underlying question of affordability of college expenses in Connecticut, they were forced to go outside of Connecticut for that public education, but they're returning here for a job.
Representative Paris.
Thank you. That was a consideration, Senator, and a worthy one. And I think that it might be too soon, quite frankly, to consider that. What we have considered in terms of a friendly amendment with our colleagues across the way is that if there is a student who went to a Connecticut school and graduated from a Connecticut school and left and returned back to Connecticut, then they would be eligible for the program. But the other way around, in which you are presenting it to us, unfortunately, that is not something that we've considered at this time. But I think that is something that could be up for consideration given the feasibility and sustainability of the program moving forward. Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kelly.
Okay. Okay. So as I look at this, I think the the initiative comes from a great place. I think there is an affordability issue in the state of Connecticut. Obviously, anything that we can do at the state level to help families and individuals get through that, I think we need to start to consider. One of the things I am always concerned about is when we look at education and higher education in particular, whether you're going into trades or to a four-year college, we should be preparing the labor force of the future. And I know in Connecticut, we do a lot of defense contracting, which requires a lot of highly skilled professionals to do that. And we saw from Electric Boat that they're hiring. And so, you know, when we do this amendment, and I know it hasn't hit the system yet, we need to consider those professions in addition to the ones that are articulated in this bill, but also look at whether or not our college system is preparing that workforce. And if we're not preparing that workforce, I know, for instance, there's a substantial number of applications to UConn for nurses, but they can only take a certain amount. And when we've saturated that quote unquote marketplace, it forces students from Connecticut to maybe go to another school, possibly one outside the state, to get that education because they can't get a slot in a good school here, only to come back because this is where they grew up, this is where they want to grow roots. And I think we really need to contemplate that. The other concern on this bill that I have is the $100,000, $125,000 threshold. I know that it's almost 50% of Connecticut taxpayers earn less than $45,000. That is an astounding statistic. And when we have thresholds at 100 and 125, I'm just mindful of those taxpayers earning less than 45,000 that may have gone into debt on a credit card, may have gone to debt on a home equity, may have gone into debt or have lost their 401k just to make ends meet here in our state. And there's no I'm going to say help for them. So I think this is a good initiative. I think we need to do a little bit more work on the bill. I'll support it today, knowing that there's some no votes in appropriations that have already marked the bill. But I think we need to really roll up our sleeves and work on this amendment to make sure that this bill fits the need. And I think we can do that. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Representative Rochelle.
Thank you, Senator. I want to thank Representative Paris for putting this bill forward and really provoking this conversation. I think that there is I look at this not only through the higher education lens, but through the workforce lens. We're competing, looking at the nursing industry. Nurses in Connecticut can make much more money being traveling nurses and leaving the state. And a bill like this would keep nurses in the state. And in a time where we critically need nurses. So I think that there is a great conversation happening here, and an important one regarding both the burden that my generation saw, where we were 18 years old, and told just take out the debt, just borrow the money, and then like Representative Turco said, paying $400 or $500 a month for the first 20 years after college is when you're 18, you may be told about that, but really living it and understanding it when we know from lots of other policy that we do that young people don't have fully developed frontal cortex at that age. They really can't fully process and conceptualize what that really, the impacts that will have on their life. I think that this is both going to address some workforce shortage needs and address a burden that we are addressing now proactively with things like the PACS program to ensure don't happen to people going forward. So let's attack it from all sides. Let's keep this conversation going. I think it's well worth getting out of committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other comments Not the bill, Representative Cooley. Then we'll go to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have reservations about this bill. I wish we had in the committee been able to really hash this out in higher ed. I do want to thank the representative for including a work requirement in it. If we go back to the Clinton administration, there was a program for teachers to get student loan forgiveness if they went into certain depressed, economically depressed and challenged districts. And I think that even with the start of any conversation of loan forgiveness, there's got to be a component where the individual who's incurred the debt is giving something back to society. It can't just be from the taxpayers giving a freebie to the student. So I want to thank him for including that. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to vote. I may vote it out of committee. But that does not mean that I'll support the bill as current later. I think it is a good conversation. And as long as we have some kind of work requirement where they're giving back to nonprofits, which will benefit the taxpayer. We know that a lot of the nonprofits, especially on the medical side, are asking for increased funding from the state. In one way, this is kind of a way of providing some extra help and services for those nonprofits on the health side and other nonprofits. So going forward, I think we always have to include some kind of work requirement for the students if they're going to get loan forgiveness, so that they're in some way paying back at least with sweat equity for the benefit of the overall society. So I do want to thank you for including that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Cooley. Let's go to my co-chair here, Representative Haddad. And then I know we need to get to Representative Paris as well. Thank you.
Same microphone, different button. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Slapp. And I wanted to just take a moment just to say that I really appreciate the conversation today. I think that student loan debt is certainly a topic that's really necessitates our conversation. Student loan debt eclipses, credit card debt now as the second most widely held sort of debt. It can't be discharged like other debt can be. It's second only to mortgages. And it has having a really serious impact on our economy. I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to the realtors. They were pushing for a similar program to this called Learn Here, Live Here, which is on the books in Connecticut, but has not yet found funding. And it occurred to me to tell them that I think that they need to be cognizant of the fact that a major barrier to getting a mortgage is that students who graduate from college are carrying so much student debt load that they really become ineligible to carry a mortgage as well. And so it's having a ripple effect through the economy that it's pretty significant. This is a small step forward if this bill were to be passed and we were able to get the funding necessary to lift it off the ground. I have a couple of comments that I hope that Corey, as you're working on an amendment, that you might consider moving forward. One is hearing that there might that we're finding money for this in a 2-year budget. We might consider making it a 2-year budget, a 2-year pilot. I worry about the promise of 4 years of eligibility with only a shorter term level of funding. And I don't want to give anybody, a false hope. If we can secure additional funding at the end of the 2 years, we can extend out the period of the pilot. Second, I think I'm looking at the implementation dates. I have high respect for the folks at the Office of Higher Education, but I think that they will be challenged to put this program together by October 1st. And we might think about an implementation date that affords them a little bit more time to get the regulations in place. And then lastly, just as we were talking about adding trade schools, I have a concern, and I hope that you will explore it, and I'd be willing to help you explore it. Student loan default rates are an important indicator of the value of a program. the federal government uses those student loan default rates as a way of assessing whether or not schools continue to be eligible to receive, the students going to those schools are continue to be eligible to receive Pell Grants. And so since we want to include what I presume would be for-profit occupational schools, or that's being contemplated in an amendment, and trades, and we know that the default rate is used to assess the value of those programs to students. I want to make sure, and we're even making students who haven't earned the certificate potentially eligible for the program. I want to just express a little bit of caution there. We don't want to screw too much with the way that we determine, federal government determines whether or not it's a program of value to students. And so that is something that I think that we should consider as you consider expanding the program to include other kinds of trade programs. Aside from those concerns and a more general concern about the scalability of the program, I mean, I think that this bill is an important part of the conversation. I'm going to support it out of committee today, and I hope that we can resolve some of those details moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Haddad. Representative Paris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly appreciate the comments and suggestions from all of the members of this committee. I believe that the work that we have before us is one of great value, and I think it's one of the more important committees, of course, here within the legislature. I believe that this bill sets out to implore among young people and families across our state and also across the country, for that matter, to choose Connecticut. I moved here in 2011 as an independent student going to Western Connecticut State University. I put myself through school. I struggled while I was in school. And for me, like a lot of other families, it was just always instilled in us to just go get the degree. And because there were challenges and difficulties in terms of me going to school on my own, I didn't have the best education in terms of what to do with student loans. And the predatory lending around the student loans. I was more concerned about having books, making good grades, and eating every night, to be frank. What is evident is that that is not a sentiment that is only shared by me, but it's also shared by families with immense means and resources, and also those who come from lower income backgrounds and middle class families. I think what's also important to note is that this bill, given its challenges and its goodness and some of its vices, is one that is committed to equity. It is one that is committed to opportunity. And I think that those who are college students that are soon to graduate, those who are coming to our colleges, either public or private or tech school or vocational schools across our state, those who have already graduated, who are working professionals that are starting families on their own that are having challenges, I believe they do deserve some kind of relief. I'm choosing my words carefully because I'm obviously passionate about this, because this is personal. It's not only personal to me because of my personal story, but it is personal to each person who worked on this bill. I know that it has been, there has been, folks who have thanked me for working on this bill, but this would not be possible without the lens that Representatives Turco, Cavros DeGraw, Palm, and Sanchez all bring to the table as well. Parents with Parent Plus loans, parents trying to keep their kids in our state to go to school here in our wonderful institutions, someone who has worked in higher ed and has also tried to buy their first home, someone who makes good money, but also has payments, reimbursement, or excuse me, student loan payments of over $700 a month for the next 300 months of their lives, while making over $100,000 a year, and can't make those payments effectively and has to choose whether or not they're going to pay for nearly $2,500 rent on a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom home, not in a big city, but in a medium-sized town, while also paying for their car insurance and car loan, and also paying for food. And they don't necessarily get to take advantage of any tax cuts that we pass in the state. They don't get to take advantage of a lot of things on the federal level. I hear some of those staffers who work with us here in the Capitol, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program through the federal government. They should qualify. And they've been turned down multiple times. They've paid their loans on time every time. They've been turned down. They've reasoned and have tried to they've tried to obviously appeal that with their federal delegation, and they still come back denied. I'm tired of denying people who choose Connecticut day in and day out. I think that we have to fix our CSU system. I think we need to fix our entire higher ed system. But I think if we don't provide relief in some form or fashion this session, the $1.9 trillion issue of student loan debt in this country will only grow for the $18.5 billion issue that we have in this state around student loan debt. I do want to just draw attention to the fact that this is not a forgiveness program. It is a reimbursement program. We on the state level has understood, and we've seen the challenges that the federal program has faced in terms of their suggestions and how to solve this issue in the federal courts has been held up. We require not only for those who are in this program and eligible to give back to their communities, not just nonprofits, but to churches through military service, by cleaning up their parks, whatever the case may be, but giving back to their communities, being working individuals, and giving dignity back to the work that they're doing. They have college degrees. Some of them had to leave to take care of a sick parent, but left in good standing. They may be a barista at Starbucks tomorrow, but they could be a C-suite executive in the next few years. They deserve dignity with understanding that they can too climb out of debt. We require that they pay back their loan, and we reimburse them untaxed up to $5,000 a year. We're saying not only did you choose us as a state, but we're choosing you to invest in. I truly believe that the other thing that we have to realize is that when you have student loan debt, everything is that much more expensive. That debt shows up on your credit reports, doesn't go away no matter what the federal government says. Creditors still keep it there. So when you go in to buy a new car, which is necessary for you to make a living, the interest rate goes up. The car payment goes up. Your car insurance goes up. And everything just became that much more expensive. Buying a house is almost nearly impossible. I understand, and I'm happy to work with every member of this committee and other committees to ensure that we are putting forth something that is viable, sustainable, pragmatic, and useful. But I implore you to understand that this is a question of equity, and that I urge all of my colleagues to pass this out of committee and to work with us to pass this on the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Weir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I really appreciate that story or that perspective from the proponent. There are personal stories behind a lot of these, a lot of the bills that we come across. I would just like to offer another perspective, one of which is a personal note, and also I've heard feedback from around the district and outside of the district, quite frankly, on just this general topic. I understand this is not a forgiveness program, but if I take myself, someone who entered college, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, ended up not finishing, and instead went into business for myself. During the many periods of time, I took out loans for equipment investing in vehicles to support my business. And those all went on my credit report. Those were all on my back to make sure that those loans were covered, those costs were covered without any guarantee. And there are lots of people who have taken this a similar tact, whether it's landscaping or plumbing. Contractors of all sorts have kind of bet on themselves. And we talk about predatory lending. When you can't go to a conventional bank, for instance, for a lawnmower. As a guy personally who left the home at 19 and started this business, before I was 20, the only option you have are non-conventional loans for equipment, because it's a risky proposition to loan somebody money for, just as it might be with a restaurant. So, I can remember paying interest rates of, 15, 18%, and the compounding interest if you missed a payment, which I don't want to say I never did. I couldn't say that, but there were months where it was really tight. So I just want to make sure that we're being considerate to those people who may not have gone the route of higher education, but took a similar financial risk. A lot of pressure, some who may have made it and some who may have failed. Either way, that debt is owed by the person who took out the loan. And we're not giving any consideration here to retaining those same quality people who may have chosen a trade, may have chosen to go to EB, or again, plumber, electrician, landscaper, you name it, somebody who chose a different path than higher education. And I know the proponent talked about not wanting to pick winners and losers, and it is a tough spot. I do appreciate the conversation, but I want to make sure that we acknowledge the other side of this, where there's more to the conversation about retention of talent in this state than just higher education. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I'm looking to see if there are any other comments or questions. I don't see any. I'm just going to make a few comments, and then we will plan for a roll call vote. And we are going to leave the votes open. I want members to know that until 12:30. And I know there's an appropriations committee going on right now at the same time. Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Mayer has a question. Senator.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I do have a comment. I want to thank the representative who just spoke and really acknowledge the importance of what you said, but also having worked with many students and families who were not able to get out of their situation because of the huge cost of loan debt for college. I want to support this bill. I believe in this bill. I think it has a tremendous opportunity for us to make a difference in students who come to Connecticut and want to stay in Connecticut. And I also hope that this is the first step in passing this bill to then address the issues that the good representative just spoke about. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Mon. Any other comments? I don't see any. I do want to thank Representative Paris and Representative DeGraw, Representative Turco, Representative Palm, and many others, I think, who have worked on this bill. It's as my co-chair said, it is a critical issue. Student loan debt, and Connecticut ranks, per capita as one of the most burdened states in terms of our constituents. So it's something that I think is critical to address. And I do appreciate the how that this bill is, it's an iterative process, of course, and I'm heartened to hear that that this is still a work in progress, that there's going to be an amendment. I hope that some of the comments that were made by members of this committee are considered in drafting that amendment. And Senator Kelly raised, I think, some very good points in terms of income limits. And how do we get the most kind of bang for our buck, especially with people who are struggling. Scalability is a challenge. It's $6 million. This program, if each student was to, or former student, I should say, was to receive the full benefit at $20,000, we'd be able to help 300 students. So I think scalability is a challenge. In the volunteer requirement, I know Representative Cooley raised a point that actually, with of course, all due respect, Senator Cooley, I don't actually agree with. I'm not sure that a nurse who's working third shift, or a teacher who's working 60 hours a week, and oftentimes these professions are low income anyway, that we need to put another burden on top of them to work, to volunteer 50 hours. I think they already have plenty of skin in the game here, and we don't need to ask something additional on top of it. And I think Representative Haddad raised a good point about just time to implement in terms of, can OHC lift this off the ground? And can they do it, in 5 months from now? But these are questions that I think are important to ask. I really do appreciate Representative Paris, Representative Turco. I'm going to signal them out because they're sitting just to the left of me here. Their leadership on this, they've been at this not just this year, but last year as well. And passing legislation is not an easy task, and to build consensus, and it takes years to do. And I know their hearts are in the right place, and that means a lot. So we'll continue, obviously, to work on this. Again, this comes from the Appropriations Committee. I supported it in the Appropriations Committee, and I'm happy to do it now as well. So that said, this is really the last chance for people to ask questions or make any comments. If not, then I would ask the clerk to call the roll on House Bill 6901. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Representative Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Senator Slapp,
Senator Slapp votes yes.
Representative Haynes, Senator Kelly,
Senator Kelly votes yes.
Representative Rochelle,
Representative Rochelle votes yes.
Senator Mar,
Senator Mar votes yes.
Representative Arceno, Representative Brown, Representative Case.
Representative Case votes yes.
Oh, thank you. Can you repeat your vote, Representative Case? You're muted.
Representative Case votes yes.
Thank you. Representative Cooley,
Representative Cooley votes yes.
Representative D'Amico,
Representative D'Amico votes yes.
Representative Farrar,
Representative Farrar votes yes.
Senator Flexer, Representative Fortier,
Representative Fortier votes yes.
Representative Johnson,
Representative Johnson votes yes.
Representative Lanu, Senator Lopes, Senator Maroney, Representative Paris,
Representative Paris votes yes.
Representative Scott,
Representative Scott votes no.
Representative Turco,
Representative Turco votes yes.
Representative Weir. He's in the waiting room. Let me let him in real quick. Representative Weir, Representative Weir.
Here with limited internet, Rep. Weir is no.
Okay, thank you. And thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, we will be leaving the votes open for an hour and a half or so till 12:30. And you can, members who are not able to cast their vote in present or online can do so by either they can do it online on Zoom, or they can come to the higher education office suite in the legislative office building. So that will conclude our meeting. We will stand in recess until 12:30. Thanks very much. Everyone have a great afternoon and a great weekend. Thank you.
Jazz, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, Rep. Haynes?
Hello,
Hello.
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Excellent. Haynes votes yes.
Okay, thank you. Have a
Did
good
you get
weekend.
that?
Yep, I got it.
Thank you.
Bye. Take
You
care.
too now. Bye-bye.
I see her on my part, yeah. Senator Flexa, are you there? No.
Hi, Senator Flexa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Madam Clerk?
Doing well. How would you like to vote on Bill 6901 and act concerning a student loan reimbursement program for certain professions?
Senator Fletcher votes no.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
I hope
you.
you have a
Have a good day. Nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, Senator Morelli, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you, Jess?
Good. So we had only one bill. It was HB 6901 and act concerning a student loan reimbursement program for certain professionals. How would you like to vote?
Senator Maroney cast his vote in the affirmative.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You as well. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Hey, Jess.
Hi, Representative Brown, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. So we voted on HB 6901 and that concerning a student loan reimbursement program for certain professionals. How would you like to vote?
Rep Brown votes yes.
Okay, I got you down. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. Bye.
Have a good weekend. Bye. Hello, Sarah Lopes. How are you? You're muted. Sorry.
Shows you I don't know how to use Zoom. How are you?
Doing well. So we only had one bill. It was
Yeah.
HB 6901, and that concerning a student loan reimbursement program for certain professionals. How would you like to vote?
I'm a yes.
Okay, I got you down.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You as well. Bye. Hi, Representative Marcelo.
But I have my daughter here with me.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Very nice. Okay, so we only voted on one bill. It was HB 6901, and that concerning a student loan reimbursement program for certain professionals. I would like to vote.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and that's it. I
Very
hope you have
good.
an amazing trip.
Everything, you have everyone voted already?
Not everybody, but I have you, so you're all set.
Okie dokie, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.